his name goes well into the mix. I mean, it's yet another name. There is some really good fighters in this weight class, guys. And like I said, the thing that excites me most is that they all want to fight each other.
Welcome into Boxing Scene's top stories. You're on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Of course, the news shaking the boxing world this week was, that's right, Tim Tszyu not just fighting, not just losing, getting destroyed by Bakhram Murtazaliev. That was last Saturday in a fight that not only a gigantic upset, but a surprise to everyone who picked Tim Tszyu. Some people who picked Tim Tszyu, not just me, but the champs joining me, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, ESPN boxing analysts, Timothy Bradley. Please help me out here, Chris. Even people who picked Tim Tszyu or might have thought Murtazaliev would win, thought it would be a close fight, a tactical fight, one round either way. This was an absolute destruction. How surprised were you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely surprising, especially in the way that it happened. Not so much the fact that he won. I thought that Tszyu was going to be able to edge him based on his fundamentals and just better technique, but I thought it was going to be a close fight. That was an utter destruction. And it's funny, I was in Plant City last week getting ready for the Wednesday Night Fight Series here on ProBox TV, and I was at a restaurant, and they had randomly fights on. Sure enough, it was Murtazaliev winning the title against Kolke. And I think it was the second round. I sent a clip to my partner here, Paulie Malignaggi, and I go, man, this guy is a nightmare. Because I'm just watching the way that he moves. He's awkward, he's strong, he's really big for the weight class. But even with that knowledge and for what I saw and understanding that this style was going to be really tough, I was still picking Tim because I believe in his skill set and his ability. But man, Murtazaliev is a problem. And he's going to be a problem for anybody in this weight class. He's big, he's strong, he's awkward, and he comes in fantastic shape.
All right, we'll discuss Tim and his future later, but it's all about to the winner go the spoils. Paulie, when you look at his skills, his ability, that destruction, 154, a marquee weight class right now. Terence Crawford looking for an opponent. How do you feel about the future of Murtazaliev?
Yeah, he's another guy who just gets thrown into the mix now in this very, very good weight class with a lot of talent. And most importantly, a lot of talent that actually fights each other. You know, unlike a lot of weight classes, this talent, you got guys that all fight each other. And we've been getting the benefit of that. You know, we had Boachuk against Virgil Ortiz a few months ago, not long ago, a couple months back. We have, this fight where Tim Tszyu was willing to get in with Virgil Ortiz and instead takes on Murtazaliev after he wasn't able to get recovered in time with the head gash. But again, it's just a mentality. And Murtazaliev, of course, he wanted to get into the mix himself. He won the IBF title, but he wanted to sort of join that fray where I think he'd be more known here in the United States. And I think he's gotten that. He's achieved that. So I think his name goes well into the mix. I mean, it's yet another name. There is some really good fighters in this weight class, guys. And like I said, the thing that excites me most is that they all want to fight each other. I expect Murtazaliev to also sort of join that party where not only is he around and has a big win and is building up now, but also as a world champion, but also now he wants to take on the best fighters possible, the biggest one possible. Obviously, he would love Crawford. This only makes, to me, less sense for Crawford to come back at a 154 because you're just seeing how difficult this weight class is, and there's not enough reward for a guy of his stature anymore, unless he really just loves to fight. But I can see Murtazaliev against any of these other guys. It would be great. I would love to see that. It would. Who knows? Maybe Virgil Ortiz and Murtazaliev. I don't know.
That's the question. Tim, I got to ask you, with the names out there, you got Fundora, you have Terence Crawford, you have Virgil Ortiz, you have the winner of Madrimov versus Boachuk, all at 154. What name would you like to see next?
Doesn't matter. It don't matter what name I would like to see him next. Any of those guys. I think Murtazaliev is a fighter that's willing to face anybody. And that's the difference between, Eastern European fighters, Australians, Japanese fighters. These guys, they fight people. That's what they do. They fight the best available guys. That's what they do, versus the American fighters that like to hide again behind a promoter, hide behind the networks, hide behind everything else other than fighting the best guys in the division. So I wouldn't mind seeing him fight against any of those guys because I think he has the punching power to hurt anybody in the division.
Tim, you make a great point, and a lot of times we on opposite sides of this. I am so much on your point here with this one. This is why I hate the pound for pound conversation, because in the West, you got guys on pound for pound lists who continue to fight cab drivers constantly and maintain their status, and a fan base that just worships them to the point where they just care to see them win against anybody. They don't care who they fight. while the Eastern fighters on the other side don't end up on pound for pound list because they constantly knock each other off fighting the best available opposition. And then, you know, they don't get the credit for it. That's why I can't stand the pound for pound conversation, because these are the kind of guys, there should be a pound for pound A and a pound for pound B, the Hollywood pound for pound and the real pound for pound, because the guys that fight each other should automatically go into there. The guys that hide behind the promoter and keep doing what they're doing, some of these Western stars, you shouldn't let them in. And it's not all Western stars. Listen, I believe Crawford always chased the toughest fights possible. Sometimes he wasn't able to get them when he was over at Top Rank. But when he was able to get them, you've seen Crawford consistently try to chase the toughest fights possible. He took on Spence, took on Porter, and even 154. You saw how difficult Madrimov was. So this isn't just for Eastern guys, but it is a Western mentality overall. Crawford is a sort of an exception to the rule when you see that. While Eastern guys, like you're saying, it's a different culture. My problem is, when fight fans don't understand why boxing fights don't happen in boxing, it's because you yourselves are pushing it that way by worshiping the guys who fight cab drivers constantly, and then criticizing the guys who, when they fight each other, get beat. Because obviously, two guys are going to fight each other. One's got to win, one's got to lose, no matter how good they are. Look at what Bohachuk and Madrimov are doing. They're fighting each other after coming off of competitive losses. They're easily, by the Western mentality, hey, they would say, I'm entitled to a soft touch right now. Look at Tim Tszyu. Again, he could have said, I'm entitled to a soft touch. Went for Virgil and then couldn't get him, so he went for Murtazaliev. It's a different mentality. It's a mentality you have to reward and praise instead of criticizing. Because if you don't, you're going to start westernizing these Eastern fighters, and then nobody's going to fight each other for real. You guys complain about nobody fights each other. Make sure they fight each other.
Paulie, part of that too, though, like you mentioned in the Madrimov and Bohachuk fight, that fight never happens if not for Turki Al-Ashik and the Riyadh season, because the promoters would not risk each other against each other, because they're not fighting profile, they're not fighting guys with profiles. There's not enough money in the pot. Now there's actually money, so the promoters are willing to put their guys up. Up until 2 years ago, that fight would never happen.
But even Tim Tszyu. But even Tim Tszyu, he's not with Turki Al-Ashik. Tim Tszyu himself.
Tim's a whole different. Tim's a whole different animal. I agree with you on that.
That's what I'm saying. But again, he's an Australian, but he's still that Russian blood. It's that Russian culture. It's still, and that's not just Eastern Europeans. It's Japanese too.
But also other than Canelo, the Mexican fighters like that too. Jesse Bam Rodriguez wants to fight everybody, and he does. He goes from super fight to super fight.
Yeah, no, there's exceptions. But those are exceptions to the rule.
Benavidez is another one of those guys. He just can't get those guys in the ring with him. But he's another one. Always go for it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Benavidez gets criticized for wanting to fight the best guys. The Western fans, first of all, it starts like this. The Western fan base is dumb as a box of rocks. Let's start that one first. Let's get off that one. And that way, because if you don't worship the guys who do this, you then end up letting the guys who want to fight everybody become stars, and then you sort of unite the sport, Eastern and Western mentality. Because yes, you're right. Benavidez wants to fight everybody. Bam Bam Rodriguez wants to fight everybody. Yeah, Crawford was the guy who looked to fight everybody. Yep. There are Western guys that in there. You have to make them the norm and reward those guys instead of rewarding your Gervonta Davises of the world, your Canelo Alvarez's of the world, where they get.
Let me add another layer, Paulie.
Go ahead.
Let me add another layer.
Go ahead.
Tim Tszyu, he lost. He got knocked out. Now he's considered a bum.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, losses are not forgiven these days.
That's what I was about to ask you guys, is how many people, Tim, let me ask you, how many promoters go, see? That's why you want the soft touch. That's why you want the softball bounce back fight. People go, look at Tim Tszyu, lost 2 in a row now, damaged goods. So, Tim, how much does it work against the system when something like this happens?
Look. That's the reason why I respect Tim Tszyu. And that's the reason why I believe that Tim Tszyu will bounce back. It will be tough for him, but he will bounce back because of his nature, because of his mentality. He wants to fight the best guys out there. And I get that everybody's trying to blame his management team, trying to blame his trainer team. You know, he's trying to blame everybody they can. And they're saying, well, Tim got cocky. Well, Tim was trying to prove not only to the fans, but also to himself that he does have the goods, that he is what everybody said he was. Remember, before this fight, and before the, I would say, Fedora fight, everyone was saying that Tim was the guy at 54. Yep. That's what everyone was saying. He's that guy. But after that Fedora fight, you know, he suffered that loss. Of course, he went through some mental things. You could see it, you know, it kind of materialized in this fight, and we'll talk about that a little later. However, you know, Tim, to me, I would say, is the type of fighter that I want all these guys to be. Test yourself against the best. Don't be taking these little soft touches. No, fight the best over and over. Prove that you are the top dog in each division. Now, we have a lot of good fighters out there, good fighters, a lot of good champions out there. but there's not a whole lot of great champions out there. You see the top 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are greats in this era, in this generation. The rest of them, I don't know. Pretty good.
But Tim, you can't look at it by record then, because if you got to make sure these guys are fighting each other, and sometimes they're going to take losses. The two biggest stars in the United States are Canelo and Gervonta Davis. They don't want to go within a sniff of fighting a live body. You know what I mean? Like, so you gotta.
They're not top. They're not top. They're not top 4.
They're the most famous though. They're not top, but they're the most famous though. They're the ones that get rewarded the most. Eventually, if you don't change this mentality, it's only a matter of time before these other fighters are going to start to look at it and say, "Man, you know what? I got to be like this, man." Obviously, these guys get all the praise, and these guys, and then fans get left in the dust. Like, "Oh, why don't everybody fight it? Why don't fighters fight each other?" Well,
they're not built like that.
You're praising the guys that don't.
They're not built like that, Paulie.
That is the question, of course. Moving forward is the future of Tim Tszyu, which we'll get to in a moment, which you can't take away. Murtazaliev, an incredible performance last Saturday, put himself not just on the map, but perhaps at the forefront of the 154-pound division, where there are a lot of great fights. Some great fights this week, also on ProBox TV from Madison Square Garden. Don't miss it.
Wednesday Night Fights. In partnership with DeBella Entertainment, it's Broadway Boxing Heroes on the Hudson 2, with proceeds benefiting veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. October 23rd. Don't miss Mio Yoshida as she defends her IBF Bantamweight World title in a rematch against Sharetta Metcalf. Live from the theater at Madison Square Garden. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.